We're finishing up November, getting
Yeah.
to December, and it's time for the Christmas season as we begin December. But we wanted to kind of go an overview almost the end of the year of the two books you have out and the third book coming. So let's go first to the first book. You're going to kind of give us the characters, the scenario, and then we'll go break down some of it a little bit further without giving it away.
Okay. The first book is the Marquis Seeks His Muse. And I love this book because the protagonist, the male, is dogged. He sees this female once, he sees her once for a fleeting second, and he's entranced. His best friend keeps teasing him and telling him, oh, what if she laughs like a donkey or talks like a duck? Or all she talks about is flowers and poems. And he finally does find her, and he sweeps her away. He absolutely sweeps her away. And then the problems begin. Um, it's she ends up getting kidnapped, which is not good. But he does finally find her. It's a kind of a twist at the end, but it's a great book. And because it's a romance, you know, they have the happily ever after, or happily ever after for now. But it is a really good book, and I love these two characters. Muriel is the lead female, and she's really smart, but she says weird things. You know, she's kind of out there a little bit. So I really like her. And they show up in all the other books, and then their children show up in the subsequent books. So their children, I've already written the books for the children, and they're around 18, 10, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So kind of to break down what you're talking about so far of the characters, let's talk about how you kind of created each character. First, the male protagonist.
I know a person that I did. It was my grandfather, actually, and my grandmother, and these two were exactly like these two characters. He was very big man, and she was a little tiny woman, very buxom, very curvaceous, and he adored her. He had this big, booming baritone voice, and you couldn't help but pay attention to the man. He was very good looking.
Mhm.
I'll tell you a story about him if we have time. He had an Indian motorcycle, and he rode it into Dallas, and it broke down, and he didn't have any money, and so he was arrested for vagrancy. And back then they did that. And so they had him do work. They had him do road work, and he was doing road work. And this very wealthy woman rode by in her car and stopped and asked the policeman, "Why is he in jail?" And they said, "For vagrancy." She paid for his bail, and then kind of uh, groomed him. You know the deal. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
wow. Okay.
yeah.
Basically that's the story in a nutshell without giving anything away. The how you came up with them. And part of the Four Horsemen. Describe the Four Horsemen for you, because again, we're gonna learn about all the Four Horsemen and the four books that come out. Go and explain all who are the Four Horsemen.
Okay, the Four Horsemen. The second book is about Frederick, and he's one of the four horsemen. The Four Horsemen are um, uh, Martin, and then Frederick, Jonathan, and Henry. And Fred and Martin grew up together. They'd known each other since they were a little bit, but they met Jonathan and Henry at Eton. And so they are all single children. They are the heirs to the throne, so to speak. They inherit the titles. They have no backup. Back then, they always wanted an heir and a spare. That is, you hear about that now with Harry and Prince Charles. Charles in his name, Prince William, and they did that back then. They just keep popping them out until they had another boy. So bad. But Frederick is in the second book, and it's the Marquis meets his match, and he's very gregarious. He likes a good time. He's they're all good-looking men, of course they are. They go to this place all the time called the Temple of Venus, and the Temple of Venus is an upscale joint for men only, and there's a bar, there's a place where you can sit and drink and play cards. They have a gambling room where they play 21, and they have the spinning thing. And then they have an area for men's pleasure. And so Frederick and Henry, they like visiting this one lady because she's really good with their preferences. And so the other two, Martin's not like that, neither is Jonathan, particularly Jonathan. But that's the way Frederick is. He likes to have a good time. If there's a party, a masquerade, whatever, he's going to be there. And so something tragic happens at the Temple of Venus, and he feels obligated to fulfill this one lady's dying request. And in the middle of that, he notices an emerald-eyed, black-haired, buxom female, and she's been around forever, but he never noticed her. And she's been in love with him since she was little, and he never paid her any attention. So this one season, they have balls, and they call it during high season. And high season is when Parliament is in session. So, of course, the men are there. So the wives and children come into London. They call it town. They don't call it London. And so they all come into town. And so that's when they have their high season. So the debutantes go to these balls, and it's specifically for girls to get married. The males may go to find a wife, or they may go to get lucky. But a lot of the stories, you'll see a lot about balls in there. So Frederick sees her at a ball, and he doesn't want to get married. He wants to party. He's had mistresses. And so he sees her, and he dances with her, and he takes her out to the terrace, and he's teasing with her because she's so naive. Well, he kisses her, and she knocks his socks off, and so he's upset with that. My light just went out.
Okay, all right. So let's go back and continue this conversation as we are live.
Yeah.
Mina, and so your lighting seems fine still. All right, so let's kind of go into the second book really quickly.
The second book. That is the second book with Frederick and Margaret. And so they end up together, of course. And then the third book is about Jonathan. And of the three or the Four Horsemen, Jonathan is probably the most stoic. He's very bright. He's made tons of money for the Four Horsemen because he's so intuitive and he sees trends that are coming. And one, he might be a kind of a, oh, I don't know, I can't think of it. Some big stockbroker here today that sees trends. Well, Jonathan is like that. He sees trends. He has a terrible home life. His father is a drunk, a whore, a gambler, and he was on the verge of having to sell the estate to pay off his debts when Jonathan came in and recouped everything.
Okay.
And so his father resents him. He doesn't. He's drunk all the time, and Jonathan has to put up with him. And he meets a girl that they rescue, and so the story hinges around him being in love with her, but being older than her, and being friends with her newly discovered father. It just so many things against the relationship that he keeps trying to stay away. But she's crazy about him, and so she really wants this to work.
Wow. Okay. Best let's look at book 2 and 3. The male character for 2 and 3. How did you come up with those male characters?
I have known men in my life that were very much like Fred, just good time Joes. I had a friend in Dallas that was so much like him, and we were really good friends. And I would say, "When are you going to settle down?" He said, "Oh, I'm not in any hurry." That was him. He'd go to a party. He was always the center of attention. Of course, he was very good looking. All the women tried to snatch him because he came from money, and then he made a lot of money. He owned a diamond syndicate. Gosh. So kind of after him. And then Jonathan, he's so stoic and so smart. I kind of created him from a woman I know. And of course, I know it sounds funny, but that's the way she was. She was really smart and thought of things before they happened, and it wasn't very gregarious. She was the type to sit back, let everybody have the limelight. And that's the way Jonathan is. He's exactly like that. He has his Four Horsemen, they're friends, but he really doesn't have a whole lot of friends outside of them. He's hard to get to know.
Okay. All right. So, and very, very interesting stuff. Book 3 coming soon. Book 1 and 2 available now on Amazon. Go to minavalentine.com right now. Check it out on Amazon. Write a review.
Yeah, you can write me at minavalentine.com, Mina Valentine author. I go to my Facebook page. I'm everywhere.
Exactly. Appreciate it, Mina. Thanks again.
You have a great weekend.
You too. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.